Hi everyone, welcome back to the show. My guest today is Brian Sharp, aka Hotep Jesus. He's the co-host of the Hotep Been Told You YouTube channel, as well as the Love and Marriage podcast with Crypto NDO. He's the author of 2 books, The Unbreakable Rules of Masculinity and Dominate Twitter. I'll put links to all of his work in the description below. Stay tuned. Thank you for joining me today, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. Great, thank you for having me.
No. It's been. I first saw you on Joe Rogan's podcast,
Okay.
and ever since then you've been real busy, and you have a lot of people have been interested in what you have to say, and your views on things. I know you're doing the Love and Marriage show with Crypto NDO. Also, that's every Wednesday. Is that right?
Yeah, every Wednesday. What time is that? 10 p.m. Eastern time?
Eastern. Yeah. So, um, let me ask you a little bit about your background. I know that you founded Coinbits, the Coinbits app, but when did you first get involved with crypto?
2017. 2017 when he had that was like the first real big boom
Yeah.
price. So I got in like early 2017 and made a pretty decent bag. I think the high that year was like maybe 20K.
20K. Yeah.
So I made a decent bag off that pump.
So what did you think when the crash happened? What was your first impression?
No, I sold at the top. I was sitting around. It was a holiday. I was sitting around with some family members, and one of the homies was there, and he was like, "Yo, are you in on Bitcoin?" And I looked at him like, "How does he know about Bitcoin?" Right? Like, this is somebody who's usually like a late adopter, a laggard. So he said, "Yeah, they're talking about the barbershop." And I'm like, "Black barbershop? Yeah, that's definitely late adopters and laggards, especially when it comes to technology. Things like Bitcoin and finance." So I was like, "Ooh, we're in a bubble."
Right. Exactly.
So I announced on Twitter I was going to sell. I was like, I'm going to sell. They're like, "Yo, you're crazy. It's going to go higher." I'm like, "Yeah, well, I already made a good bag." And I come from traditional investing world where, you make 20%, 30%, you're killing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was well over that. So I sold. And then the next year it crashed. And I was like, see?
Told you. What that Hotep been told you?
Hotep's been told you. Yeah, exactly.
So your background, like you said, is in investing, but you've founded what 4 other technology projects, right?
Yeah, Coinbits app, Jiffitize, Wazo, and Bloom.
Right.
I'm,
Now,
I'm, I'm I'm
Jiffitai,
either like an advisor or co-founder. I don't found these companies. The only thing I'm an actual original founder of is Hotep Nation, nonprofit organization corporation. But the others are projects I'm usually on the advisory board and just on a cap table.
gotcha. Okay. So, but what was it about those projects that you were interested in? Like Gifitize, for example. That's
Hour.
for creating gifts, right?
No, actually, it's for extracting gifts from the Twitter platform to your iPhone because you can't do it on iPhone.
Okay.
So you save chips and videos directly to your iPhone in a very fast and organized way. Puts it right neatly in a folder, so everything's right there, and it takes a few seconds to download, so on and so forth. So that project came about. I was in a group chat. Somebody said they needed an iOS expert. Somebody was an expert in working with apps, mobile apps, and I was in that space for about maybe a decade already. So I asked them about it, and they said they wanted to pay me. I'm like, I'm not interested in fiat currency. I'm interested in equity. And they're like, "Oh, you want to be a business partner?" I'm like, "Yeah." So that's how I got on that project.
Okay. And so you have like a stake in each one of the companies.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. And do you
Yeah.
think that's a better option for people when they want to look into these different companies to get equity instead of cash?
I mean, if you have cash flow, then get equity. If you need the cash flow, maybe get paid or maybe get a mix between the two. Equity and cash flow. It depends on your needs. I don't need cash flow. I have cash flow, so I'm going for the big bag.
Right. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Unicorn and and then I can start my philanthropy work.
Right. So, what's your view on where we are right now in tech? Do you think do you think things are getting better? Do you think there's too much invasiveness? Like, a lot of people are concerned about Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, and the control that they have. So, what do you feel about that?
I mean, invasiveness is something that has little to do with tech and a lot to do with government. When you go look at the Bank Secrecy Act of, I think, was it 1970 maybe?
Hmm.
But they Patriot Act. It's different things that the government has put in place that make it possible and legal for people to spy on you, so on and so forth. So the technology just gives you the capabilities, but the government makes it legal
Right. And
and
then
lawful.
they take advantage of the tech that's out there.
Correct.
Yeah. I remember there was the NSA put out a app called Gitara, and it was put out by the NSA, and they're telling everybody you can use it. And I'm like, why would you use anything the NSA offers you?
Well, the NSA built the SHA-256 algorithm for Bitcoin, and we're using that.
That's true. Actually, no, you got me. That's true. That's 100% true.
The protocol that the deep web runs off of was created by the CIA, and we use that.
Yeah, Tor was the CIA and the Navy, I believe, is how Tor came about. No, that's actually a very good point, because I think we take it for granted our access to these different things.
Mm-hmm.
We just think that they've always been there.
Yeah.
Like you have a lot of people who don't know of a world where Facebook didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And so no, that's a very good point. I love that. I wanted to get your opinion on something. Recently, it's called HR 40. It's a bill put by Representative Shirley Jackson Lee.
Sheila Jackson.
Sheila Jackson Lee. Thank you. And it's basically reparations.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been the debate about how that would work. And I wanted to get your opinion on if Bitcoin could be used in some fashion in that conversation. And I guess the first thing would be, would it even be a viable option right now?
This is a big trick. The reparations conversation that's been put forth in HR 40 is one huge trick. There's 2 points I want to make here. One of them is, and when we look at some of the policies that destroyed the Black community, they've been wholly socialist and democratic. And look at the people in charge of the Black communities, they're Democrats all around. We can definitely hold the left accountable for a lot. But when we talk about slavery, if we're talking about reparations for slavery, it's not the government that the lawsuit has to be brought against. There are banks and insurance companies, AIG, Barclays, just to name a couple, that wholly profited from slavery. The trick is to get us in a place where we're looking at government to do something about it, so that the banks sidestep any responsibility or accountability. The banks and insurance companies, but they were wholly driving the Atlantic slave trade, especially insurance companies. Of course, the banking companies, but especially insurance companies, because they insured cargo and whatnot.
Right.
And they invested too. So that's the big switcheroo. Remove blame or sidestep the blame from this guy, put it on this guy. Come to find out this guy is innocent. And it's just like, now you're back at square one. Okay. So it's HR 40 is a big sham.
Okay. So how do you think, or do you think we even should be having that discussion about reparations?
It's a lawsuit. It's a lawsuit that Black people it could be a class action lawsuit that Black people can bring against the banks and insurance companies that did that. If they feel like they have a plausible case and they feel like their life has been limited, their upward mobility has been limited because of slavery and generational curse, so to speak. Right. You can track it right back. I mean, all these banks and insurance companies have already admitted it. They've apologized for it. So this is a simple class action lawsuit.
Sure. But what would the I guess the lawsuit what would be the award for the class action lawsuit?
I don't know.
Like
I don't know.
land or
I don't know. It could be monetary.
give me monetary.
I would assume that everybody would get a check from these banks. My
Yeah.
bad. I'm sorry. We did this. And you figure if there's, let's say 15 banks, I think it's more, but 15, a total between banks and insurance companies, 15 of them. Shit, we can get $1 million from each of them. You know how much money these companies got?
True.
I'd
That's
be
very true.
happy with it. The problem is be a lot of black people running around with a lot of money, and there's a lot of power to give black people.
And the lack of
And
education can make it just as bad as not having anything.
I'm not worried about that. I'm just saying, what would that do to the economy?
Yeah. But since I've been seeing people on Twitter talking about Bitcoin as, don't give me fiat, give me Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, but you don't know how to use it. So why are you saying that?
Well, well, in order to understand that argument, you'd have to understand Gresham's law, and Gresham's law says bad money drives out good money.
Mhm.
So that's what we're saying right now. You ask somebody and say, "Hey, you have Bitcoin?" Yeah. Well, buy my product in Bitcoin. I'm like, no, I'll give you some of my Ethereum or my Litecoin.
Right.
But you ain't getting my Bitcoin.
Yeah, get my Bitcoin.
Right? Bitcoin is sort of a public reserve currency.
Right.
That's where we stash our dollars. We don't want to spend our Bitcoin. We're using that to sidestep inflation.
Yeah.
We're using that to secure our future.
Right. Right.
So that we can transfer Bitcoin into another capital good at some point in the future. So it's like, don't give me your fiat, give me the Bitcoin, and I'll just hoard that. You got to look at it like a 401k or Roth IRA. This isn't money for now. This is money 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, or for the kids and the grandkids, right?
Right.
That's what Bitcoin is, because the last Bitcoin mine is going to be for like another 150 years.
150 years, yeah.
So who knows what Bitcoin is going to be worth at that point, right? It's like, it's like having a Babe Ruth baseball card and you sold it,
Right.
years ago. Like, no, it's something you fucking keep as a family heirloom.
Right. Exactly.
That's Bitcoin.
Okay, I see. Okay, I see that. So it's not something that you should be putting out as, okay, instead of, okay, we messed up, here's a check, just take the fiat, live your life like you normally would. If you want to put it into Bitcoin, that's on you,
Yeah.
but it should be a straight monetary compensation.
If it's coming from banks and insurance companies, how else do you handle lawsuits?
Sure. Well,
Right?
because
What else would you get from a lawsuit other than money?
right, exactly.
Right?
But I mean,
an apology?
right. Well, but
I
I
don't
mean,
want no fucking apology.
right? Like, no, it's too late for that.
Yeah, like, I don't care.
Right. But I mean, I see people online talking about the whole, you promised us 40 acres and a mule.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but you don't know anything about farming. Why do you want 40 acres and a mule? Just get the cash.
Well, again, you don't want 40 acres to farm. Farming is the last thing you want.
Yeah.
Farming has destroyed our society and our civilization. When they go ask the indigenous people in Africa, why don't you farm? He's like, why would I farm? There's
Right.
plenty of nuts that grow wild right here, and I can live off of these, right?
Right. Exactly.
There's a lot of different things that can be cultivated, but you want land not for farming, but for freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Freedom to build infrastructure, right? And when I say infrastructure, I'm talking about just the core necessities of life, like electricity, like a Bitcoin mining farm.
Right. Exactly.
You give me 40 acres to mule, I'm not farming, I'm mining. Right?
Exactly.
Like, we're in the future now. Like, farming is some shit you do when you're poor, right?
Right. It's like, we don't live in agrarian anymore. You can move up, right?
Yeah. Like that old agrarian thing is just not. I mean, look at China, right? China was a backwards agrarian society, and they launched themselves to the forefront of the powers in the world by manufacturing.
Right.
One of the biggest things they manufacture that everybody in the world gets from them is shoes.
Right.
They surveyed the world and said, what is it that people want and need? Well, everybody need a pair of shoes. You ain't walking outside barefoot.
No, you're not.
Right. So they started manufacturing shoes by the billions.
Yeah.
Not everybody gets their clothes from China.
Yeah.
Right? Because they mastered manufacturing. So you say you give me 40 acres of mule, I'm setting up a factory. I'm setting up manufacturing.
Exactly. Or
You know what I
leasing
mean?
it out to somebody at the very least, right?
Right. Housing, yeah.
Yeah.
This is so much more you can do with the
So
land.
it's just, I think it's just the conversation got lost in the when this offense happened, as opposed to a today practical answer to it.
If HR 40 goes to the government, the only thing I'm asking for is at the minimum, and I'm even leery to commit to this, a decade of tax exemption for individuals and Black-owned corporations above 50%.
Okay.
So if I own more than 50% of a company, that company's tax exempt for the next decade.
Okay. All right.
If we talk reparations, that's what I want. Because when we look at the institutions that have been put in place in 1913, this is a direct violation of the Constitution.
Yeah, exactly.
So again, comes back to my point before, like I tweeted out, I said, I could make a case where white people deserve reparations, and Black people got mad at me. And I'm like, you don't see how you win if that happens? We get alleviated from this octopus, this Hydra monster.
Right.
That has entangled us in this web of fiat currency. It's a direct violation of the 16th Amendment.
Right. Yeah. Well, and then the fact that they had to add all these amendments to cover up the wrongs that happened before.
Yeah.
Like the 13th Amendment shouldn't be necessary because you shouldn't be owning people.
Correct.
Right.
Exactly.
Article
1, Section 8. Clearly that's been violated.
Right.
And misconstrued and misinterpreted.
Yeah.
It's terrible, man. It's terrible. So, we all deserve reparations of some sort.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about it, everyone's been screwed over at least once or twice by the banks, by the government. I mean, that's not something that's new. So it's not particular to us as a people. It's just we got the worst case scenario of when the government and corporations decide to screw with people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So what's next for Hotep Nation? What are you working on right now?
We got the Grifties. Grifties.com app is up. And that's the power rankings of all the greatest grifters of the year.
Okay, now I want to be honest with you. The reason why I was really nervous about this interview, because I was like, I am not ending up on the Grifties. Do everything in my power to not end up on the Grifties.
Yeah. Jason Whitlock complimented us, from Fox News and Outkick and all that. Yeah. So, Jason Whitlock complimented us, said he loved the award show. So we did the award show early this year. We filmed it. We planned it, all last on the fourth quarter of last year. And that turned out to be such a hit that we're going to do it again next year. And
we launched the Grifties. I love it.
Yeah. Annual award show. And then we have the app to accompany the idea, so people can go on and they can actually vote and nominate people for a Grifty. Because we had a lot of people saying, oh, such and such got snubbed, such and such got snubbed. So we democratized the process and allowed the people to have a voice in who should get a Grifty, So, and we have some more content coming. We have the State of the Grift, which would be a monthly acknowledgement of a grifter, which will be performed by our president, Doe Dubes, A.R. Morton, author of A $1 Trillion Nation. So I think we're focused on that. We'll have an event this year, a meetup, but I don't like to spread us too thin. It's like, here's what we do. We do this really well. Let's just keep executing on this.
Nice.
Yeah.
My last question. So I have your book, Dominate Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the one thing people do on Twitter that you think makes it impossible for them to see any growth or potential?
The one thing that they like a big mistake?
A mistake that people do.
They don't know how to mind their business.
Okay.
They're not branding. A lot of people aren't branding. A lot of people, what they do is, um, so I always say social media is show and tell,
Mm,
right? So you're only as great as you are on the internet as you are in real life. If you're not doing it in real life, when you show up on the internet, you got nothing to show, you
right.
know. So people aren't going to be impressed by you. Um, People see what I do on Twitter, but they're more impressed by what I do off of Twitter. They're like, "Oh my God, this guy's, for tech companies, a nonprofit organization. He's an author. He speaks at events. So it's like all these things I do outside of Twitter that makes me great on Twitter.
Right.
And branding, of course. Like Dominate Twitter is going to teach you branding, and that's really the key to all this. You can't market until you brand. You can't advertise until you brand. At least not effectively. Branding is gonna be what gives you your stickiness. What's going to increase your retention rates. You look at a show like Hotep's Been Told You, it's really sticky. People come, they watch, and they're like, I'll be back next week
Right.
live, or people watch a recording and they're like, oh, I got to watch this show live. Right.
Right. Right.
So it's very sticky to where people watch an episode and they come back. So that's what we focus on is retention. But yeah, I think the problem is people go online and just mind other people's business. They're always talking about things that other people do.
Mm-hmm.
Also, people are very narcissistic on Twitter. They only talk about themselves. If you look at me, like I was with Zach Tate the other night, and he was like, "Yo, Hotep, you're like very humble. You never even like talk yourself up." And it's just like, I don't have to. So many people already do that,
Right.
right? Like they talk it up for me. And I'm a person who I feel like today's version of me is obsolete already. So I'm looking at, who am I tomorrow? So I'm always trying to get better. But a lot of people go on social media and they're very narcissistic. All they do is talk about themselves. And that's whack too. What you really want to do is you want to get on there and you want to explore ideas with people. You want to expand their consciousness. And
Right.
that's what I do. I challenge people to think and we have conversations. I talk, I have all these tech companies. I don't even talk about tech really on my platform. I don't even talk about crypto really on my platform. But I talk about a whole lot of ideas that affect all the decisions we're going to make in our everyday life. And then through that, people grow respect for me. So then when they see I have companies, they're like, buy, buy, buy. They just hit the buy button. They don't even question it because I've already built that trust.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's like your Rogan interview. I mean, that thing was almost about 2 hours long, and I think you
3.
mentioned 3 hours. I'm sorry, and it was like 5 minutes of Bitcoin. Everything else was everything else, but
Yeah.
the Bitcoin community jumped on the Hotep bandwagon like that.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
this guy.
Yeah.
So
I mean, had I operated on social media like other people do, just talking about Bitcoin or talking about this or talking about that, they don't make it to Joe Rogan. I don't go to Joe Rogan. I'm on Joe Rogan because I'm enigmatic. I step outside the normal,
mhm,
and I'm challenging people's consciousness. Hey, you got to be interesting. Separate myself from everybody else. That's what marketing really is. Marketing is equals uniqueness. When people ask you what's marketing, marketing equals uniqueness.
okay, gotcha. Right.
That's how you succinctly define that. How are you unique from everybody else? That's marketing. How is your product unique from everything else? That's marketing.
Nice.
And that's what I teach in Dominate Twitter. I teach you how to do that, both on the front end consciously, and then how to affect people's decision making and build trust subconsciously.
Nice. Nice. All right. Well, I think we're going to end it right there. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And this has been very enlightening. And of course, we're going to link your Love and Marriage show. We're going to link a Hotep Been Told You. And what night does that is that
Which
what
has been told you is Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Thursday 8 p.m. Eastern. So we're going to link all of that to this video. Hotep Jesus, thank you so much for joining me there. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.